Studio. Really looking forward to having this conversation. So the new chief exec of social housing organisation for Viva, is Colette McKune. She's got an MBE, which I'm just a bit jealous about. So good morning.
Okay. That's okay.
Can I have yours?
You can have mine.
Yeah,
I'm going for an OBE next time.
Yeah, I've not got one
You've
yet.
not got one?
No.
Oh, Robbie Williams isn't happy that he hasn't got
I'm
one.
not bothered about Robbie.
No, I know. You'd think he'd raised £30 million for charity. You'd think they'd give him a go, though, wouldn't
You
it?
would, yeah. I think he got something to do with some investments he's made in the past. So, very quickly, about your job. So, we call it social housing now. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, it was called council housing.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, you went on the housing list.
Yeah.
And these tended to be working class people who couldn't afford to buy a house.
Yeah.
And we were living in slums, and we moved from the slums with cockroaches and everything outside toilet to the flats on Oldfield Road.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And my mum then got us a proper house in Weast after about 10 years when we were there. And that council housing used to be for working people. Not a reward, it was a way of saying, look, you work hard, you're part of the community, and we, local government, on your behalf, will get you somewhere decent to live. Yep. Why did council estates become sinks when the whole description, council estate, made you think of tow rags living in council houses? How did that come about? Any idea?
Oh, media.
But people like
poverty porn. You only have to look at some of the programmes that have been on TV that have portrayed people who live in social housing. We've seen them over the past years. The Tory government hasn't helped in terms of their perception of social housing being part of the problem, not being part of the solution.
Margaret Thatcher would say, well, I gave people the chance to buy their social housing out, and that was an amazing movement forward for the working classes.
She did give people the opportunity to buy their homes, but unfortunately what then happened was a period of recession where people couldn't then afford to maintain those homes, and the traditional jobs that were operated in those areas, that were available in those areas, are lost to communities. Manufacturing jobs have gone.
What does Viva do? Tell us.
OK, well, Viva is a social purpose organisation that invests all the profits that we make, so there's no shareholders, invests all the profits that we make into social housing. So the organisation consists of our social housing, which is for housing, and our commercial arm, which is Liberty, which is a national contractor. So all the profits that we make go into supporting the community and to supporting social housing and to building social housing to subsidise some social housing.
How difficult is that these days to actually... Because, again, we're hearing that we've a national shortage of decent social housing for people to live in.
Oh, it's a real problem. It's contributing to homelessness that we have. It's not the only contributory factor to the homelessness problem that we have, but homelessness is vastly on the increase. And the rough sleepers that we see, although that's heartbreaking, that's only part of the story. There's as many people sofa surfing, there's as many people in temporary accommodation, and it isn't all about people you hear often that it's because people have got substance abuse problems, that they've got mental health, or they want to be on the streets. Well, I don't know of anyone who would want to be in the middle of winter sitting on Dean's Gate. And, we had the horrific circumstances last year of 2 people dying on the same night in Dean's Gate.
You're from the same background as me. Mm-hmm. I ended up here, God knows, I would never have thought that would have happened when I was a kid. How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Council estate, again, youngest of 6. And I got through education. I believed that my way out, or I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to go to the local factory. I didn't want to go and work in the Bird's Eye. Didn't want to go and work in the English Electric. I didn't want to go and work for a bank. I wanted to do something different. I believed I had potential. I was the youngest of the family. No one else had passed the 11 plus. No one had gone to university. I was fortunate. I worked hard.
Were you the first to go to uni from your family?
I was the first to pass the 11 plus and the first to go to uni.
Oh, and Martin was?
Yeah, first one. So I was the college pudding, and I've still, as the youngest of the family, I'm still referred to as the college pudding.
Oh, yeah.
But you can imagine my family are so incredibly proud of me.
You are, as far as I'm aware, the only gay chief exec of a social housing group. Does that matter to you? Is that important, the fact that I know that and I've mentioned that?
It's not important to me. I'm not the only one. There are a number, particularly in the northwest. But does it matter to me? No, it doesn't. I am out loud and proud. I don't make it the only thing that I am. It's not how I would introduce myself. But it's important. And why is it important? It shows that the organisation that I lead is an inclusive organisation. And we have many from the LGBTI community who live in our properties, but who also work for the organisation. Quite sadly, we have a senior manager in the organisation who is gay, and this is the first time he's ever felt comfortable to come out in the organisation in which he works.
Have you ever felt that you were the brunt of criticism or of censure, or any hurdles were put in front of you because of your sexuality and discrimination?
Yeah, that's certainly. I don't know if any hurdles have been put, but there's an undercurrent. I can remember a couple of years ago negotiating over quite a large contract, and I overheard some of the contractors that we were refer to me in an incredibly discourteous and crude, rude way. And is it prevalent? Yes, it is, I believe. It's still very prevalent. Sadly enough, it is. But I faced more discrimination on being a woman than I have being a lesbian woman.
That's interesting. Tell me about that.
Okay, well, I've worked in the last bastions. I've lived in Australia, in the male domain of the world. I've worked in the police, and I've worked in construction. Bear in mind, this was the police in the 90s, so in the 90s it was a different world, and the discrimination was open. You know, I was a woman, I still am a woman, and why was I given legs to walk between the bedroom and the kitchen? And that was just constant language every day. Things were done as a joke that was seen today as being sexual assault. In terms of my own career, and the reason I decided to leave, I'd hit a glass ceiling, and at a point in time when I was stopped from going on a career progression because I may get pregnant and it'd be the waste of an investment, that's when I decided to move on. And then I decided to move on and go into construction, in which invariably I'd be the only woman in a room full of men, and invariably when I'd walk in with colleagues they'd think I was the PA. How
much do you believe in what you're trying to do in terms of, and I hope I'm not being too simplistic here, in providing decent homes for decent people to live in who otherwise wouldn't have a home?
It's vitally important. It's vitally important for those individuals. It's vitally important for communities, but it's vitally important for society. The reason that we have disenfranchised people, that we have homeless, is that people haven't got the bolt hole, that fundamental right of a home, a decent home to live in. And that excludes you from so much. It excludes you from job opportunities. It excludes you from education. You only have to look at it, and I can't remember the figures, but you've got a greater... you will die younger if you live in Little Hulton than if you live in Worsley.
How do you feel about... I'll give you a couple of examples from my perspective. So I get the tram in to work a lot of the time, and it depends what sort of time scale I'm on. But sometimes I get a tram from Durka through to Manchester.
Yeah.
And at one point we passed by a huge burnt out warehouse right by the tram stop. And I think, what a brilliant brownfield site to put social housing on. Right next to a tram stop in an already established houses and that around. Wouldn't that be lovely rather than having this burnt out building? And then I get to Manchester and all I can see is skyscrapers. And with all due respect, those are apartments. Those are not homes. They're apartments. Thousands of them. And I think, hang on a minute. They're building stuff here, and it's not for people and families, and they won't build there. How do you get over those sort of difficulties?
Planning is a big issue for us. First and foremost, the biggest issue is finding the land and suitable land, then getting over the hurdle of planning. And the cuts that have faced local authorities mean that the cuts have faced the planning department, and it takes an inordinate amount of time to get planning through. But before that, you've got to find the land, and the land can be owned by private individuals. It can be owned by companies who are land banking it in case, it might get a better return in future. It can be owned by local authorities and education and church.
Well, Andy Burnham said that he wants to change that so that you can purchase easier and that planning controls are less bureaucratic. Do you see any sign of that happening?
I'm not seeing any sign of it now.
Okay. You're new in the job. What do you feel that you want to achieve in your first year? What would make you really happy?
More inclusivity in the organisation. I believe that if you just keep talking to the same people, you're always going to get the same answers. And we need to talk to all people. So I need more balance in the organisation. I need a more mix of our staff coming from part of the community. I want to build more homes.
Does that include parts of the working class?
Oh, absolutely. The disenfranchised working class. Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. Your white male working class who is disenfranchised at this moment in time. Absolutely it does. I want to build more social housing and at a sub-market rent. You've been
working alongside Carl Austin Behan, who's he's Andy Burnham's LGBT advisor. When he first was introduced, a lot of people questioned whether that job was necessary. What would you say about that?
Oh, it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary to lead from the front, to educate people more. When you've got a situation in Birmingham where people are standing outside a school to protest against something that is part of the Equality Act from 2010, and we're now in a world in which people are fearful that if we teach primary school children that the world is multicultural, that there are many colours to the rainbow, that they're suddenly going to become gay. It's just ridiculous.
But isn't that part of that whole multicultural, that's yes. Different cultures that disagree with you?
And it is different cultures that disagree with it, but there are people outside who are protesting against Muslims and Islam, and there's as much Islamophobia.
I've got a bit of a hobby horse about my background. I'm here, and it's a privilege to be able to do this. I'm here because my boss believed in me. However, and I'm not bad at what I do. You won't hear me on Radio 2, Radio 4, or 5 Live at any time in the near future because I'm a scruff with an accent. What would you say to people who are listening to you now and thinking, there's no way I'm going to get into the sort of work that Colette's doing? What do you say to them?
Oh, you can. You can. And particularly if you're a female or you're from an underrepresented group, you absolutely can. But what you have to do is focus on your education, focus on learning, and focus on not looking over your shoulder, competing with a man or competing with someone of different colour or someone of different sexuality. Focus on doing the good job. Focus on doing a great job. And that's how you'll get there. There is no glass ceilings to anyone. It's the only the glass ceiling that you put there yourself.
Welcome to the job.
Thank you very much. It was like an interview.
But great having you on the programme.
Thank you.
Might get you in a year and see if you've achieved what you wanted to achieve.
Hopefully, I hope I achieve more social housing.
Brilliant. Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Take care.
BBC Radio Manchester.